Welcome to the Hearts Entwined podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lyn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the Hearts Entwined podcast. This is your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts. And today, listeners, I've got a really exciting guest. Her name is Suzanne Mulvehill, and we're going to be talking about all things women and orgasm today. So welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you so much, Lyn. Thank you for having me on your show.
Well, Suzanne, this is such an interesting and insightful, and I would think a very informative topic to talk about for women today. We're going to be looking and discussing what helps women achieve orgasm and helping women rediscover orgasm, or for those women who've never achieved orgasm, how they can actually start that process of learning how to have one. So, Suzanne, tell me, first of all, and the listeners, how you got into studying this particular subject.
Oh, well, how I got into studying it was having the problem myself. So for more than 30 years, I had, how would I call it? A relationship with orgasm that was kind of like my relationships with men. You know, they would come and go. And also there was a lot of shame around my orgasm because it was like, well, if I get into a new relationship and then I have this problem where I'm not going to orgasm. So it was, I saw more than 4 sex therapists over that 30-year period. And I came to a point where I was like, therapy isn't doing it. This isn't working. I need something else. And I ended up taking a class in London, in fact, a 7-month course called Orgasmic Meditation that is no longer, it's very active in London and in certain parts of the world, but the company that started it is no longer around as a for-profit company. Anyway, I discovered orgasmic meditation, I discovered meditation, I discovered cannabis, and I found that when I saw my first sex therapist at 20 some years old, I wanted to become a sex therapist. I thought, this is what I want to do. And now here I am I'm 61. I'm 3 years into my PhD program. I am already a certified clinical sexologist, and I'm working on my PhD in clinical sexology, doing research on cannabis and female orgasm, because I found that that helped me. I'm just going to tell you, like, this is a women's show. Like, I was able to have female ejaculation. Like, that had never happened. It wasn't even in my list of things to do because it was not even there. And I thought, oh my God, like, can this be related to cannabis? And I began to explore cannabis. So that's kind of the long or the short of how I got involved in how I got here to become a clinical sexologist, working on a PhD and conducting research on cannabis and female orgasm.
So tell the listeners a little bit about your research and what you discovered, some percentages around the stats that you uncovered.
Thank you. So, sure. So I've researched more than 900 articles to write the proposal to do the research project. And a couple things that I found were that, number one, more than 46% of women, up to 46% of women worldwide, have difficulty orgasming. And more disturbing than that is that statistic has not changed for 50 years. And that research came out of Finland. Dr. Osmo Kontula had found that the statistic hasn't changed for 50 years. So what I also found was that there's only one validated treatment for, they call it female orgasmic disorder. I prefer to use the word difficulty rather than disorder because I don't think it's a disorder.
No.
I just don't like the label.
No.
right?
No, it doesn't sound very inspiring.
No, and they took it away for men. So it's no longer called male orgasmic disorder. It used to be called male orgasmic disorder. Now it's called delayed ejaculation, which is a different topic, but they don't have the label anymore of disorder. So that there's only one validated treatment for female orgasmic difficulty, and that's only for women who've never orgasmed. It's called direct masturbation, and that was developed in the 1970s. So there are no other validated treatments for the majority of women who have difficulty orgasming. And I just found that to be
sad.
Shocking, right? What did you say?
Sad.
Sad. And I mean, if you think about anxiety, okay, 18% of the population has anxiety. And there's national associations for anxiety disorders. There's treatments for anxiety. There's all kinds of things. But when it came to female orgasm, especially because it's something that I struggled with for so long and felt there was really nowhere to turn. There really just wasn't a training program. So that's what I'm in the process of developing, is female orgasm training, because I believe and I've seen and I've experienced proven pathways to orgasm. And it has to do with, I want to say, changing the brain. That the brain, I just wrote a blog post about how the brain can heal our orgasm when it's not a quick fix. Meaning, oftentimes we think, oh, we can go to the store, we can buy a pill and we can take it and we're better. That's like not my experience. Like Viagra. Okay, so I would say anecdotally, I can tell you that the anecdotal evidence, meaning the evidence that's not directly researched, shows for more than 50 years that cannabis helps women orgasm. So I think I've answered the question and I started going into another direction. So.
No worries about that. You're more than welcome to elaborate. So in terms of cannabis then, I don't know the current status of whether this is a legal or illegal substance at the moment. Can you give us an idea around that to start with before we got talking about how it links to helping women with orgasm?
Okay, sure. So in Florida, which is where I am from, it's legal in Florida. And the research shows, Dr. Becky Lyn is a researcher she's an OBGYN out of St. Louis, Missouri. Her research showed that more frequent use of cannabis, women are 2.14 times more likely to orgasm the more frequently that they use cannabis before sex. So another researcher, Dr. Kasman, in 2020 found that he used what was called a female sexual function index. It's an instrument. They call it an instrument for collecting data on women who have difficulty with the realms of pain, arousal, desire, orgasm, pain, lubrication are some of the main components of what's called the FSFI. And found that for each step up of cannabis use, sexual difficulty, I'm not going to use the word dysfunction, sexual difficulty declines by 21%. So what it's showing is that it is when I say by each step up, so if a woman goes from using it once a month to using it once a week, that improves 21%. If she goes from using it once a week to once every 2 or 3 days, that's another 21%. So each step up improves the sexual functioning of a woman by 21%. So there's something here, and it's been in the research for 50 years. Dr. Eric Good wrote about marijuana and sex back in the 1960s, 1970s. There are other researchers that were prominent in talking about cannabis being part of the design for sex, meaning it was used even in ancient times for sexual enhancement. So it is not a new story. In fact, part of the reasons it became illegal back in the 1930s in the United States is because women were enjoying it, and they were finding that, I mean, if you go and read, I mean, some of these articles about why cannabis became illegal, it's pretty clear in the language that was used that, I'm just going to say it, that men were intimidated by the fact that women were enjoying sex with cannabis, and they thought they were going to be running off with other men, and they would lose their woman, you know. So that's kind of that's where I'm now focusing on. Does it help? My research question is, does cannabis help women who have difficulty? That question has not been asked and studied directly. So that's the question that I'm asking.
Excellent. Well, in terms of, I suppose the other side of the coin, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, is that I suppose there is always the risk that, you know, cannabis can lead to going on to harder types of drugs to get, you know, even more highs, so to speak, in our lives. So what's your thoughts around that?
That's a good point. And that's what we were taught. That's what the images that I was growing up with in the 70s was that the brain was going to be fried on marijuana. Certainly, it is not good for under 25 years of age. It's definitely bad for the brain for adolescents. There's no question about that. In terms of it leading to harder drugs, I don't believe that's true. I mean, I believe we were taught that it's an entry-level drug. And it may be when someone's a teenager that they start out with something like marijuana, but for a 30 or 40 or 50, which I was in my 50s when I started using cannabis, that's not true for me. From personal experience.
It's similar as well to people that started smoking. Obviously, there's millions of people that probably smoke or have even stopped smoking now, but you know, not all of those smokers transferred their desires to try anything more than smoking.
Exactly. I mean, I would think, you know, we could say the same thing about alcohol leading to other drugs. I mean, if we're going to put one drug in the category of this is an entry-level drug, then which drug is it? Is it alcohol? Is it cigarettes? You know, is it, because cigarettes you can just buy. So if someone I haven't looked into the research on, does it actually lead to, for a 40-year-old woman or a 35-year-old woman, will it lead her to harder drugs? I would say probably not. That's my take on that. Okay. But it's a good question because it's been what we've been taught.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose it's each person taking responsibility for their actions, isn't it? It's like, you know, that's every person that plays the lottery is going to become a gambling addict, for example.
And clearly, people who use alcohol can become alcoholics. People who use cannabis can become addicted to cannabis. People who eat sugar, you know what I mean? It can really be addiction or being craving something. I want to say it isn't selective. It's when it becomes a craving, regardless of what it is. I mean, certainly there are drugs that will kill people, you know, if they're addicted to them. Marijuana hasn't been found to be that kind of drug where it's going to actually kill people. And maybe if somebody's driving and using cannabis, just like if they're driving and being drunk, you can get a DUI. So it's a good point.
And what are, just again, for the sake of balance, do you see there are any cons to actually using cannabis to help female orgasm?
Good point. Number one, it's not for everyone. Number two, the dosage hasn't been determined, what the proper pill, if you will, or dosage. Finding the right amount is important. Using too much can actually, I would say, ruin a sexual experience. At least that was my experience when I started using cannabis. It'd be like, nope, just leave me alone. I don't even touch me, you know? So there can be, if someone has psychotic tendencies, it's definitely not something to be taken. It's not something to be used as an escape. It's to be used with intention. Using it in a country where it's illegal it's also a problem, because in many countries, I know a woman in England who tried to get a prescription for cannabis as a medical prescription for helping her with her orgasm, and she was refused. So I think the legality issue is one that's also important to consider in depending on where somebody lives. Like Europe, for example, it's very not, I think Amsterdam and Brussels maybe, and maybe Luxembourg are the only places that it's actually legal. Some other downsides, the perception of it's not socially really an acceptable. It's not completely so. I would say that the social acceptability of it. Those are some of the things that come to mind. Did you have any questions about anything in particular?
No, I was just wondering, because obviously I'm from the UK originally, and although at the moment I'm based in Spain, and I know it isn't legal there, so I'm just thinking, this could be a problem for people that are in countries where it isn't legal. Have you done any research about alternatives to cannabis that help women with female orgasm?
Good question. So what I have found is, and what research has shown, is meditation is something that can help women learn to focus and concentrate. That because the opposite of that is what's called cognitive distraction, is one of the things that affects women's ability to orgasm. So by stopping all the noise in one's head and learning how to meditate can be very helpful for as one of the tools, I'm going to call it, that it may be one of the tools along with yoga, Kundalini yoga in particular. Developing a pleasure practice. This is something that I had 4 women in a group because I started a pleasure practice. It's not masturbation. Like we often think of masturbation as you just go and masturbate and have a sexual release, etc. A pleasure practice is a conscious practice that's, say it's once or twice or 3 times a week, where a woman would actually, okay, today I'm going to try exploring touch on my body with the opposite hand. Today I'm going to try, I want to see what it feels like to be in a higher state of arousal. I want to see where I am in the desire cycle. Do I have the sexual desire? Do I have, is the arousal stage where I don't really get aroused? Is it difficult for me to let go into orgasm? Am I thinking about orgasm? So versus, they call it spectating, meaning watching the work, which is what I used to do, was just like, okay. And it was kind of like an alert system because I had trauma in my past. So the trauma is like, wait a minute, we're not letting go here. That could be dangerous, I think it's a multimodal, what they call a multimodal treatment approach, meaning it's not any one thing. It's a combination of things that can actually, for a woman to find what avenue, which pathway works to enhance sensation in the body, to let go into sensation. My experience with Kundalini yoga, I can tell you that I have, from 2 years ago to now, I'm in teacher training for Kundalini yoga because I'm fascinated with it and learning how to surrender into sensation. Imagination training is another proven pathway that's been found in research to practice developing imagination. In fact, one researcher, Dr. Whipple, found that women who have orgasm through imagination that the orgasm has the same magnitude as an orgasm without physical touch.
Very powerful. Yeah.
Very powerful. So these are, the fantasy is another one, like learning how to have fantasy. I never had any fantasies. I mean, my thing was just, it was very goal oriented. Am I going to have an orgasm? Am I not? Or being set up for failure. Like, wow, I'm going to go into this. I already know what's going to happen. Kind of having a negative outcome already before you even begin.
Yeah.
It's already in the mind. So it's really, the whole theme of it is, like I showed in the earlier beginning, was about retraining the mind. And so those are some tools besides cannabis that can help. So that, just to recap, it was meditation, it was pleasure practice, it was imagination, and fantasy are a few.
Another word you mentioned was Kundalini, and for the benefit of for the benefit of the listeners, I should say, what do you mean by Kundalini? Because I've heard the term before and I know what it means, but I'd like you to explain for the benefit of anybody that doesn't know.
Thank you. So Kundalini yoga is based on, comes from Tantra, the philosophies of Tantra, back from ancient times, and it incorporates breath, like what's called pranayama, in breathing with movement. Those are the combinations. Like there's certain breath, it's breath, movement, and mantra, which is repeating something over and over in the mind. They say that in Kundalini, they say that the energy is stored in the sexual energy becomes unlocked in the body through the practice of this breathing and bringing the energy up through the energy centers of the body, the intelligence centers of the body, they call it the 7 chakras. I mean, being a researcher, I like to see facts. Like I have a hard time like just saying, oh yeah, it's an energy center in your body and it's coiled like a snake. I don't really buy that. What I do buy is the results. And what I mean by that is Kundalini yoga has been shown to improve, to have better results than even pharmaceutical drugs for obsessive compulsive disorder, for example. Yoga as a practice has been proven to help women with female sexual issues. Kundalini hasn't been studied directly. So that, I don't know if that it's the combination of movement, breath, and mantra. And there are specific, it's like a medicine where there are thousands of kriyas, they're called, which is an actual practice. Like I did one yesterday it was called Renew Your Self Concept. And at first I was like, what is this? This seems stupid. You know what I mean? I could hear my little voice being like, whatever I had to do in doing this thing, I'm like, oh my God, this feels so stupid. And then 10 minutes later, I'm crying, like having this actual release, like renewing my, and I was like, shit, this is powerful.
Yeah.
So
it's just a case of, allowing yourself to be open to these things, isn't it?
Yes. And dealing with that chatter, the resistance to change is one of the most difficult things, I think, that I can speak for myself, or just, I don't want to speak for everyone, but just being open to change versus coming up with excuses for change, like having actually an awakening and staying spiritual, staying awake, and not letting resistance take us out of, like letting resistance take us out of balance, basically, going beyond resistance.
Yeah, and that's usually through past hurts and fears that we sort of default into that, don't we?
Wow.
Yeah.
You asked about the fears, is that what you said?
Yeah, usually it's because we default into fears and doubts, when that happens, when we resist.
Yes, and that's why it's important to have a practice of like a mental diet, not allowing those kind of thoughts to come in. Or when they do come in, taking a look at it. Okay, wait a minute. What is this? No, wait a minute. I'm afraid of. No, what am I afraid of? and really talking to the fear and building a relationship with fear, like giving every part of us a seat at the table, giving resistance a seat at the table, giving fear at the seat at the table, not denying any part of ourselves. I think as women, that's our tendency, is to suppress certain aspects of ourselves. And I had to learn to give all parts of myself a seat at the table, whether it's grief, whether it's sadness, whether it's happiness. I mean, it's easier to give the good, the fun things. I mean, we label them good or bad, or this is a nice feeling, giving them all a seat at the table.
100% agree with that. And it doesn't mean we have to let them sit there permanently, but, like you say, at least observe and hear it out.
Yeah, hear what they have to say. And then we have the power to help it transform. So if it's sadness, like, okay, yeah, I'm sad, and we have the tears cry. And it's like, okay, now if that's our inner child, okay, I want to go out and play now, letting that kid now go out and play. So yeah.
Absolutely. And, offering the wiser words of wisdom as the adult that you are now to that inner child.
Yes, like really, really loving on. It's like, and I remember when I was doing my pleasure practice, one time I was like, part of me was in resistance. And I remember crying and saying, I don't want to do this. And the adult part of me, like, had to comfort the child part of me and say, it's okay. I'm going to keep you safe. And, that safety component for women, like if we were to compare Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of security down at the bottom, for the most important need that's at the bottom, for women, it's safety in learning to let go and learning to orgasm. In my opinion, I think safety plays a huge role. Safety in the relationship, safety in the body, safety in oneself, safety in the world.
I agree. 100%. Yeah, I think that is the highest priority for women. So, Suzanne, we're coming towards the end of the actual episode now. So, for the benefit of our listeners, what is your best contact information for anybody that might want to reach out with you and perhaps take part in your survey and your research?
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Lyn. Your listeners can go to orgasmproject.org. orgasmproject.org, and the survey will pop up right on the homepage. And my email is there also, info@orgasmproject.org.
Thank you so much. So any final words of wisdom that you would like to share before we close off this episode?
I think for any woman that has had difficulty with orgasm or struggles with any shame around orgasm or any type of sexual issue, to give hope that it's not there forever, that problem, that they can change with determination, with desire to change, moving through the problem. It's not going to be there forever. And I know from my own experience, I can share that. Because I've come through perhaps what other women are still struggling with. It doesn't have to be that way to have hope and to put the action into place to make the changes consistently and with commitment, and they will have a renewed sense of self.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. This has been a really fascinating conversation. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for sharing your story and your vulnerability and your wise words of wisdom.
Thank you. Yeah, and the survey is good. It's a 40-question survey for women who use cannabis and are engaged in partnered sex. And like I mentioned, it can be found at orgasmproject.org till the end of the year. I'll be collecting data and hope to share with you next year what the results find.
Excellent. So it just leaves me to say, listeners, true love starts with opening our hearts. And until next time, goodbye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lyn via the Facebook group Two Hearts Entwined, or search Lyn Smith, inspirational speaker, at LinkedIn, or email lyn@hearts-entwined.com. That's LYN@hearts-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.